Hello everyone, my name is Jack Baynes, I'm 18 years old, from East London, and if anything, autism has been one of the greatest developments in me that I've ever experienced in my 18 years of age. Definitely not. Definitely not. We do not have the same, there's never really the same way. For one, I mentioned in a previous question that I was high-functioning autistic. For those of you who don't know, it's different compared to what slow-functioning autistic. Essentially, the high-functioning autistic people are people who sound like normal people, people like me, who you wouldn't know straight away, might guess, but wouldn't know straight away that I was autistic, because I can talk and learn in the same way as most other people. Low-functioning autistic people tend to have many learning difficulties and in fact physical difficulties, like they could be blind, could be mute. I knew that autism was never the same for everyone through a young age, when my church at that particular time, there was also another autistic young man, or should I say person not that much older than me, who was very mute, so only really communicated in, well, with regards to squeals of either excitement or stress. Oftentimes ran out of the church. I mean, technically I used to as a little kid as well, but he did that as an adult we're talking about. So that's often what happens when he gets either excited or stressed. So it's very difficult for him to communicate. The only writing he does is writing over another person's writing. Yeah. And he has his quirks about him that most people don't understand as well. For one, he literally eats orange peel, seems to be more interested in the peel as opposed to the oranges. And in fact, I often don't think of it in my own autism in the same, well, as even autism. I tend to think of it as my individual journey, because I believe a lot different has happened compared to other people, and I often decide to base it on logical circumstances and causes. So I tend to be, as a person, always wanting to be true at every single cost. I never really liked sarcasm personally, because I found it a little too... It didn't really make the same amount of sense. I always feel that telling the truth, even in moments where lying could actually get you away from crises, I really think telling the truth would be a much better alternative, because there are many stories of corruption we hear, especially across the world and through politics. It would have been easier if truth were to be told as directly as possible, so that people could be clear. Because I think, yeah, no matter how angry other people are going to get, I think people would get even more angry if they missed out on the typical truth. Which is why I tend to think of it in that way. I'd like to reference a particular novel here, which will be very important in the later questions as well. And I think this will be something I'd recommend you to have a look at. A novel by Mark Haddon called The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. Mark Haddon himself had Asperger's syndrome, and this is a book with a protagonist who has Asperger's syndrome, which, well, different to autism, but still very similar, and he could easily have been labelled as an autistic person. The guy with Asperger's syndrome said that he could never tell lies to anyone. He never ever could tell lies. It's not common in most people, of course. I mean, obviously we want to be truthful as a general human rule, but for people with autism, Asperger's syndrome, and probably other kinds of maybe ADHD, you'd really want to search for truth. We really want truth, clarity, a routine. I mentioned at the end anyway about regularity, that we need to be that I've always wanted more regularity than most other people. Yeah. Oh yeah, and the fact that we have to be less conformist as well. We autistic people don't just always conform to society, we always look for truth. I mean, obviously we sometimes have a canon. I have a canon of Christianity and other particular principles to follow, but that doesn't usually mean it's in the same way as following friends. others. As I was saying, I'm a very independent person, and one thing I never struggled to understand was the amount of people around me who were addicted to simply being friends with other people. I found that hard to understand, why people would destroy their own personal independence for the sake of others, I think. So that's something that's different, and how I think differently.